Have you ever wondered how a simple act of kindness can completely change someone's life? Stay with me until the end, because what started as one young man's small gesture on a cold night at a bus stop would lead to an unbelievable twist of fate you won't see coming. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel Kindness Story Asa, because every story here proves that kindness has the power to transform the world. It was late evening in the city, the kind of night where the wind seemed to pierce right through the skin and every breath formed small clouds of white mist. Streetlights buzzed faintly, and people hurried past with their coats wrapped tightly around them. At the corner of an old intersection stood the bus stop that had seen better days, up its metal bench cold as ice, its glass panels fogged with frost. Sitting there was a woman, her arms hugging her body as though she could squeeze warmth out of herself. She had no scarf, no gloves, and her thin jacket looked completely unfit for the brutal weather. Her teeth chattered softly, but she kept her eyes down, as though she didn't want anyone to notice her. A few steps away, a young man named Daniel walked briskly, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Daniel was in his mid-20s, with kind eyes that seemed older than his age. He had just finished a long shift at the Café Tilde Copyright, where he worked double hours to pay for his mother's medical bills. Life had never been easy for him, but despite the struggles, there was something in Daniel that refused to harden an instinct to look out for others, even when he had very little himself. As he reached the bus stop, his eyes fell on the woman shivering against the bench, and something tugged at his heart. He slowed his pace, debating silently with himself. The jacket he wore wasn't fancy, just a worn-out brown coat he'd bought from a thrift shop 2 winters ago, but it was warm. It was the only thing protecting him from the biting cold. If he gave it away, he'd be freezing on the walk home. Yet when he saw the woman's lips trembling and her shoulders quaking, the choice became clear. Without a word, Daniel stepped closer, shrugged the coat off his shoulders, and gently draped it around hers. The woman looked up sharply, startled. Her eyes were striking a deep, commanding, yet vulnerable in that moment. "You don't have to," she whispered, her voice carrying both gratitude and disbelief. Danielle smiled faintly. "You look older than me. I'll be fine." For a second, she hesitated, as if unused to receiving kindness without a price tag. Her hands clutched the jacket, pulling it closer around her. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice cracking slightly. Danielle simply nodded, then sat at the far end of the bench, shoving his hands into his pockets to shield them from the cold. Minutes passed in silence, the hum of distant traffic filling the air. Daniel didn't ask her questions, didn't demand a story, didn't even stare. He just sat quietly, as though sharing his warmth wasn't just about the jacket but about respecting her dignity too. The woman kept glancing at him, her mind racing. She wasn't just anyone, she was Eleanor Gray, the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company known for its glass skyscraper headquarters downtown, a woman whose boardroom presence could silence men twice her age, who was known in the business world for her sharp intellect and fearless decisions. Yet in this moment, none of her wealth, none of her power, none of her titles mattered. She was just a lonely woman waiting for a bus, feeling more invisible than ever. What Daniel didn't know was that Eleanor had deliberately chosen this bus stop. Earlier that day, she had walked away from a lavish charity gala thrown in her honor. Surrounded by luxury, champagne glasses, and hollow smiles, she suddenly felt suffocated. Everyone admired her wealth, but no one saw her as a person. So she slipped away unnoticed, dressed plainly, hoping to blend in with the city she had long since become detached from. She wanted, just for once, to see how the world treated her without her name and fortune attached. And what she found was coldness, of people rushing by, unwilling to stop, until Daniel came along. When the bus finally arrived, Daniel stood up and motioned for her to get on first. "Stay warm," he said gently. Eleanor looked at him, her throat tightening with emotions she couldn't explain. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, and not as a CEO, not as a powerful figure, but simply as a human being who mattered. She wanted to say more, to ask his name, but by the time she turned back from climbing the bus steps, Daniel had already disappeared into the night, walking briskly toward the darker end of the street. The warmth of the jacket lingered with her throughout the ride. Eleanor sat silently, replaying the moment in her mind. Who was that young man? Why did his small gesture affect her so deeply? As the bus rocked along, she pressed her hands against the fabric, as though trying to hold on to not just the warmth but the kindness it represented. For years, she had lived in a world of deals, contracts, and transactions, where every gesture had strings attached. Yet these are the simple act from a stranger who had nothing to gain was more valuable than all the wealth she possessed. That night, Eleanor returned to her penthouse apartment, its vast rooms echoing with emptiness. She placed the jacket on a chair, staring at it as though it were some priceless artifact. She couldn't shake the image of Daniel's quiet smile, his unassuming presence. In a city full of ambition and greed, he was different, and though she didn't know how, she made up her mind that she would find him again. The following week, Eleanor could have gone back to her usual life of board meetings and high-profile interviews, but something had shifted inside her. Instead of burying herself in business, she sent her assistant to quietly investigate the young man who had given her his jacket. It took some effort after all. Daniel wasn't famous or wealthy, he was just another hard-working soul lost in the crowd. But eventually, her assistant tracked down the Café Tilde copyright where he worked. Eleanor didn't reveal her identity right away. She simply visited the Café Tilde copyright, sitting at a corner table, watching him serve customers with the same gentle patience she had seen that night at the bus stop. Every gesture of his seemed filled with quiet grace, from refilling cups of coffee to helping an elderly man pick up a dropped cane. She couldn't help but smile, realizing that what she had witnessed at the bus stop wasn't a one-time thing. Kindness wasn't something Daniel performed for recognition, it was who he was at his core. And for a woman who had spent years surrounded by people who measured everything in profits and benefits, this realization felt like a breath of fresh air. Little did Daniel know, the act of draping his old jacket over a shivering stranger was about to change his entire life. Because Eleanor Gray, the CEO who held the power to shape futures and open doors, had silently decided that this young man deserved more than the struggles he was trapped in. He had given her warmth when she felt invisible, and now, she was determined to give him something in return. And what she was about to do would not only alter Daniel's path but would also redefine what true success meant to her. But the story doesn't end here. What happens next will surprise you even more. So make sure you've liked this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories, because Chapter 2 is where Daniel's life takes a turn he never expected.